Welcome to the Green Ring, and thanks for watching. This video resumes the series of intermission features between Die Walküre and Siegfried during the channel's note-by-note analysis of Wagner's Der Ring des Nibelungen from first page to last. Please do leave a like and or add a comment, even subscribe to the channel, any of these being so vital to the YouTube algorithm which keeps this one-of-a-kind enterprise afloat. Many apologies indeed for the long hiatus. Due to serious health and personal issues, I've been entirely unable to post a new video until now. Long story short, I'll continue this vast project, hopefully uninterrupted. However, Siegfried is still not ready, so I'm continuing these interim chapters with other material. Thank you those who've continued to subscribe. I can't find words equal to thanking you for your faith and patient stamina. For the next videos, I've decided to change things up and perhaps attract some additional interest. This, the first of those, is a real change of pace. My critique of two cinematic adaptations of the same English novel, one from the 1960s, the other premiered a bit less than a decade past. It's a book I've known and loved ever since before I started work on the Ring project, which means for over half a century. As you can guess, I have strong feelings about these two very different approaches to the material, so this video will be tartly opinionated. Don't let that turn you off to either version, which I strongly recommend you check out for yourselves. Better yet, read the book. And now on to the video. 20th century British author Evelyn Waugh is best known for his novel Brideshead Revisited, thanks to the enormous popularity of a 1981 Granada Films miniseries released through BBC, an instant classic that launched Jeremy Irons' iconic career. A decade and a half before, I became fascinated with Waugh thanks to Tony Richardson's 1965 film of The Loved One. Robert Morris and Rod Steiger lead its biting jab at American culture. Jonathan Winter's dual roles joining a host of iconic cameos in the Michael Todd tradition. John Gielgud, Roddy McDowall, Tab Hunter, Milton Berle, Margaret Leighton, Paul Williams, Dana Andrews, James Coburn, Robert Morley, and even Liberace as a coffin salesman. Touted as the movie with something to offend everyone, it remains one of cinema's underrated masterpieces. Richardson's film inspired me, at 15 years old, to read Waugh's first novel, Decline and Fall, then write a primitive longhand screenplay along with lyrics for a musical comedy. Half a decade later, LA's legendary Z Channel broadcast the book's 1968 British film adaptation, the very year I'd labored all unaware on my own take. This modest film didn't impress me any more than it had its release audiences, and since then, apart from the 1981 miniseries, Waugh's legacy hasn't fared well. Even so, there have been several respectable shots at rehabilitating it. 1988's Handful of Dust with Alec Guinness, Angelica Houston, and Kirsten Scott Thomas, well received by critics, didn't rekindle popular interest any more than did a Brideshead film remake starring Emma Thompson. You'd think it would end there. But in 2017, BBC released Acorn Pictures' Decline and Fall miniseries to capitalize on the early 21st century's hunger for serialized British fiction, including The Indomitable Doctor Who, Downton Abbey, and The Crown. This celluloid Anglomania has deep roots in mid-20th century film. David Lean's Bridge on the River Kwai, Lawrence of Arabia, and Dr. Zhivago thrust the international spotlight on British cinema. A host of prestigious British titles lived up to and swelled that interest. Richardson's Tom Jones, Lindsay Anderson's This Sporting Life and If, Schlesinger's Billy Liar, Darling, and Far from the Madding Crowd, Loze's The Servant, and Accident, both with Harold Pinter scripts, Forbes' Seance on a Wet Afternoon, and Michael Caine in Alfie. Richard Lester made his mark with A Hard Day's Night and Help, immediately followed by The Knack, alongside its competitor Georgie Girl, with Lynn Redgrave, Alan Bates, and James Mason. Ken Russell exploded on the scene with Women in Love, starring Glenda Jackson, Alan Bates, and Oliver Reed. That same year, having already produced Paths of Glory, Lolita, Dr. Strangelove, and 2001 A Space Odyssey in England, Stanley Kubrick moved his base there permanently, from which he produced all his remaining masterpieces. Likely thanks to Terry Southern's script work on Strangelove, Joseph McGrath filmed Southern's novel The Magic Christian, led by Peter Sellers and Ringo Starr. It followed in the loved one's footsteps with star-studded cameos, including The Goon Show's Spike Milligan, Python's Graham Chapman and John Cleese, and those from other film traditions like Wilfred Hyde White, Christopher Lee, Lawrence Harvey, Yul Brynner, Roman Polanski, and Raquel Welch. Richard Attenborough, today best known for Spielberg's Jurassic Park films, took his own turn in that production. Attenborough's directorial debut that same year, Oh What a Lovely War, boasted its own august cameo roster. Maggie Smith, Ian Holm, Laurence Olivier, Ralph Richardson, John Gielgud, John Mills, Dirk Bogarde, Susanna York, Edward Fox, Jean-Pierre Cassel, Jack Hawkins, Vanessa Redgrave, her father Michael, and brother Colin, and Michael Bates, who went on to play Chief Guard Barnes in Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange. Decline and fall of a birdwatcher sprouted from this fertile loam, enriched by the 60s' new won social and sexual freedoms, seemingly an ideal medium for a biting satire of England's upper class. Waugh's 1928 novel concerns a retiring theology student who, blamed for his aristocratic classmates' unprovoked attack, is thrown out of college. With his sole career choice, a shady public boys' school, he reluctantly settles among its eccentric staff only for a pupil's wealthy mother to rescue him. His inadvertent brush with her dubious business dealings lands him in prison. But, sprung by her powerful friends, he returns to college as if nothing had happened. Britain's Ealing Studios would have been a perfect match for this eminently British material. Kind Hearts and Coronets, The Lavender Hill Mob, and The Lady Killers among its best-known films. Think Dennis Price as Pennyfeather, Sir Cedric Howrick as Fagin, Alec Guinness as Grimes, Joan Greenwood as Margot, Alastair Sim as Prendergast, Peter Sellers as Philbrick, Silenus, and the prison governor. But Ealing's one literary classic was a financially disappointing Nicholas Nickleby adaptation. It flew against the studio's penchant for original scripts. An Ealing excursion into Waugh could never have happened. Both 1968 film and 2017 miniseries follow Waugh's plot. 1968 reimagines it as a wacky modern dress farce, spiced with coy sexual innuendo. The 2017 miniseries embraces the original's late 1920s setting, only to go full Downton Abbey by transforming its Brazilian heroine into a ditzy American. Concessions like these may suit the two adaptations' far-flung eras, but they flatten the novel's tart satire. 1968's film team director John Krish, with its writers Ivan Foxwell and Alan Hackney. Composer Ron Goodwin enjoyed a more significant career, including Margaret Rutherford's Miss Marple series, Battle of Britain, and Hitchcock's Frenzy. His whimsical main theme with its retro pop flavor sets the movie's tone over satiny title boards, merging Cirque's Imitation of Life remake with the Fillmore West light show imagined by Pepper Potts. The film makes its first blunder by altering its title to play on its hero's last name, Pennyfeather. Adding of a birdwatcher may reassure audiences they're in for a comedy, but abandoned Waugh's satirical jab at upper-class privilege for superficial laughs. The film's Paul Pennyfeather first appears gazing through binoculars at an owl perched atop the college quad. This sole reference to birdwatching, a wink at British slang, is reinforced on the spot as girls undressing in a nearby window mistake Pennyfeather for a voyeur. The movie doubles down as Paul, depantsed by his assailants, blunders atop a screaming co-ed. These suggestive gags during its first minutes explain Paul's expulsion, only to gut the novel's central theme of social snobbery. There, its hero is expelled due solely to inferiority to his aristocratic muggers. In 1968, their elegant clothes could be dismissed as a side effect of the party they've just left, making them indistinguishable in status from their victim. This jag out of satire into slapstick violates the first rule of comedy. Never shout you're funny. It only screams you're not. The film teems with a host of self-conscious winks and unearned pratfalls. It ignores Paul's schoolroom trials, dwells on his stumbles about his rattletrap sleeping quarters, as, omitting the book's setup and payoff, a student puffs a cigar below. His fellow students abandon their sports to flirt with girls, who, given it's a boys' school, appear out of nowhere. Paul joins his wealthy love interest where she lounges nude in a sauna with homoerotic wrestling match in the background. Later, male house party guests ogle her dance with an ingenue, whom she passes to the next willing lass while a straight couple openly neck. These appeals to the 1960s taste for anarchic sexual freedom have no precedent in the novel without adding satiric momentum. The film's excellent cast works overtime to cure these giddy puffery. Genevieve Page reimagines the female lead's South American bombshell as pure continental allure. Her voluptuous purr and head-turning beauty a match for both story and sensuous times. Robin Phillips radiates Pennyfeather's mix of youthful charm and starry-eyed innocence, while Donald Wolfett delivers a spot-on embodiment of Waugh's pompously clueless school proprietor. From my first read of the book, the legendary Leo McKern struck me as the perfect Captain Grimes. He makes a silk purse out of the script's blunt caricature, while a note-perfect Robert Harris modulates his fellow schoolmaster Prendergast with exactly the right clueless gravitas. Patience Collier skillfully balances the opposites of Fagin's two daughters, whose contrasting severity and sentimentality the script uneasily rolls into one. Collier went on to earn her stripes when she nailed Meryl Streep's nemesis and Carl Reit's French lieutenant's woman. Ronald Curram's German accent, less Frankfurt than Mayfair, does invest his weird architect with suitable arch hauteur, yet reduces Waugh's severe Brechtian monolith to a smooth, narrow-jacketed flower child, while the script makes him irrelevant by omitting a key speech which puts the entire story in perspective. More on that later. Colin Blakely enjoyed a long career, including standout performances in This Sporting Life, A Man for All Seasons, Murder on the Orient Express, Equus, and Evil Under the Sun. His portrayal of the school's shady butler adds wild comic punch, but his outrageous makeup and cartoon mugging read into the prison episode with less than happy effect. The film's casting misfires only heighten its preference for broad farce over satire. As Margot's pompous MP Swain, Griffith Jones gets lost in the comic chatter. David McAllister's Bess Chetand faring marginally better, whose additional screen time is more keenly tuned to Waugh's intent. Michael Elwyn's Trumpington, one of the novel's pivotal characters, while seen as part of the Bollinger Club in the film's beginning, later gets only 2 almost cameo-like appearances, while Donald Sinden's dithering prison governor drains his bizarre penal innovations of all comic punch. Kubrick later featured Patrick Magee in 2 iconic films, thanks to his magnificent star turn as the Marquis de Sade in Peter Brook's Marat/Sade. Magee's performance in this film as a psychotic killer suits the film's overall tone, but is more A Clockwork Orange's goggle-eyed hysteric than Barry Lyndon's stoic chevalier. Preceded in 1967 by The Graduate, The Trip, The Happening, In Like Flint, and The President's Analyst, Decline and Fall of a Birdwatcher's 1968 release was swamped by an insurmountable cavalcade of British and American titles. Midnight Cowboy, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, Easy Rider, Hello Dolly, Take the Money and Run, Alice's Restaurant, Sweet Charity, Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice, The Sterile Cuckoo, Anne of the Thousand Days, They Shoot Horses, Don't They?, A Flea in Her Ear, I Love You, Alice B. Toklas, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, Hitchcock's Topaz, and John Wayne's True Grit. In this cinematic din, Birdwatcher's flawed chirps were inaudible. Half a century of cultural evolution separates the 1968 movie from its 2017 reincarnation. This new version's greater length was a chance to heighten its satiric kick by fleshing out backstories while including episodes the 1968 film dropped. Britain's years of experience mounting lush period productions of classic novels also made a reboot inviting. Beautifully lensed, opulently designed, flawlessly costumed, and smoothly directed, the miniseries 1920s look is flawless. Scone College, Glenaba Castle, Egdon Prison, doing velvety honor to Waugh. Rotten Tomatoes gives it a whopping 91% critical rating with an audience approval of 75%. For me, it's a strain to rate it at 20%. Compared to 1968, the performances, all from talented actors, are misfires with a few striking exceptions. Jack Whitehall's frenetic stand-up hardly prepares his calmly sympathetic Pennyfeather, intelligent, shyly reticent, always gentle, mixed with the distressed patience for his outrageous compatriots, exactly as Waugh imagined it. David Suchet's diminutive stature does nothing to stop him from projecting every inch of Fagin's tawdry grandeur, while Stephen Graham embodies Philbrick's surly deadpan to the letter, slick disinterest effortlessly masking oily calculation. The storied talents of Nicholas Grace and Tim Pickett-Smith also delight as college administrators who savor the perks they gleefully anticipate thanks to fines levied on unruly students. Eva Longoria's heroine is problematic. The actress, a beautiful Latina bursting with talent, seems the perfect choice for the novel's equatorial heartbreaker. The miniseries instead denatures the book seductress into an American ditz, likely hoping to capitalize on Elizabeth McGovern's infusion of Yankee charm in Downton Abbey. It's a choice emblematic of the production's myriad faults. While the 1968 film goes off course with a heavy lean into the wild 60s, 2017's fondness for early 21st century memes spirals out of control. A feeble attempt to identify the aristocratic Bollinger Club, one easily missed reference to Bollies, leaves their class as vague as in 1968. Paul's indignity in the quad just as pointless. Stripping him buck naked would never have happened in the 1920s and was too much even for the hypersexual 60s, yet it plays to the 21st century's taste for casual nudity without a blink. Trumpington, the epitome of upper-class snobbery, resurfaces throughout the novel, an insidious reminder of the sharp class divide giving the novel its life's blood. 2017 restricts him to 3 pallid scenes. Both versions omit him as Margot's lover after Paul's imprisonment, but 1968 honors the novel by including him as the facilitator of Pennyfeather's escape. The miniseries hands this duty to Margot's fond son, earning sympathy for the elite in defiance of the book's sharp lampoon. The novel's Grimes accepts Trumpington's blood money against Paul's better instincts, a subplot absent in 1968, which the miniseries hands to a minor character of Paul's own class, who refuses the money to spite him, then throws it in his face that he's done it long after the fact. This kills the laugh, robs Grimes of much-needed sympathy, and abandons yet another of Waugh's jabs at the upper class. Douglas Hodge as Grimes totters beside Vincent Franklin's Prendergast like a two-headed cartoon drunk, each with similar boozy backstories and identical slapstick mugging, both alien to the sophisticated wit of Waugh's novel. Grimes' dalliance with Margot's chauffeur, shoehorned into the school sports, paints gays as pathetic liabilities as the apparent rationale for his proposal to Fagin's daughter. The 1968 film follows the novel's subplot, where Grimes impregnates Flossie, then escapes marriage by faking his own suicide just moments before his first wife turns up. This distracting clutter in the miniseries gives Prendergast scarcely a breath of narrative air. Waugh's reticent teetotaling churchman's soul lapse, a single whiskey, leads to his disaster at the sports. The miniseries denatures this haplessly noble sincerity into a messy Grimes clone, whose cheap laughs inspire little sympathy. Either unaware of or unconcerned about his own racism, Waugh depicts Margot's African-American sports date as a crass stereotype, a hot potato fumbled by miniseries and film alike in their own shaky ways. 1968 limits Chokey's dialogue to a few lines met with glares from the pasty white crowd. The miniseries at least gives him one of the few speeches lifted verbatim from the novel, only to duck its broadside at racism as Fagin dodges him without giving any real response. Chokey storms away, never to be seen or heard from again. 2017 allots its 3 episodes to school, Margot's country home, and Paul's prison time, going full road with its middle chapter. 1968 at least honors the novel by imagining King's Thursday's rebuilt house as a James Bond fever dream, wild mechanical gadgets cheek to jowl with interiors bouncing between 60s psychedelia, Aero Arneo hanging chairs, and stuffy British chinoiserie. 2017's quasi-Bauhaus shoebox looks quaint even by today's upper-middle-class standards, though does earn a lone unforced laugh when its architect brags on the panoramic window he's placed so high no eye can reach it. The book's house party includes 4 openly gay characters, all preferable to 2017's sleazy Grimes stand-in. The one survivor, a prickly lesbian in the book, droops into a giddy flapper who chases the sybaritic architect. Professor Silenus, vaguely sinister in the book, is unrecognizable in the miniseries as a cigar-puffing nudist proudly displaying his photo album of nude prostitutes. Margot's stolid politician suitor, a big-boned fellow indeed in 2017, leaves no doubt she'd prefer Paul, but flips on its head the novel's jab at gluttonous politicians shriveled to skeletons by their own self-importance. The irrelevant slapstick of an episode incorporated from Vile Bodies, Decline and Fall's companion novel, reduces Paul both to clownish impotence and craven deviousness, both entirely out of character. His humiliation at the piano is invented out of nowhere, when Bess Chetand boasts of his non-existent keyboard skills. Margot's son bears little resemblance to the novel. Like the 1968 film, the miniseries squeamishly excises his growing alcoholism only to replace it with the doe-eyed simplicity that muddies the class divide at the bottom of Paul's woes. Longoria's empty-headed dizziness, alien to the book's sophisticated seductress, further weakens this crucial distinction, since Whitehall's faithful rendition of Waugh's Paul gives no hint her wealth would attract him. Together with all the house party's cavalcade of disconnects, it throws off balance everything to follow. The 1968 film makes it as far as its prison sequence before sailing off track, with expressionistic sets, Keystone cop guards, and a governor more at home behind asylum bars than an official desk. 2017's physical production is a marked improvement, but, like the earlier film, merges the novel's two prisons into one. The satire of those benefits Paul reaps from Margot's upper-class marriage, lost. 2017's prison governor goes through the motions of his eccentric penal theories with a deadpan restraint that flattens its laughs. Prendergast's comic potential dies in a very serious discussion with Paul over Margot's duplicity, something Waugh dispatches with a few pointed thrusts. Prendergast's murder, a plastic head bouncing at Paul's feet, leaves the hymnal scene as a pointless recap of Grimes' escape, while the 1968 film never mentions the fatal marshlands encircling Egdon Prison. The miniseries does make a point to stress its dangers, only to bury that punch in Philbrick's hymn lyrics. Neither includes Paul's eminently cinematic vision of the fugitive's glorious heavenly ascent as fellow inmates doff their caps. 1968 at least reserves Prendergast's demise for its hymnal sequence. Though Philbrick and Grimes share the news, whom the novel never reunites, the earlier film at least honors the original snarky British reserve by presenting these ghastly details not in overdone visuals, but with wryly macabre lyrics puckishly snuck into a prim religious anthem. The book reveals Margot's tactical marriage relatively early in its prison sequence. 2017 shifts that beat to nearly tale's end in order to milk Paul's fervor for someone unworthy of him. His failed tunnel to freedom, a tired cliché found nowhere in the book, depends on emotions Whitehall paints eloquently with no help from Longoria's wrong-headed performance. It may lead to the show's most powerful moment, but one that rides on Whitehall's skill alone. Both versions recoil from Waugh's bittersweet finale. 1968's hip 60s romp ties up its loose ends with the chaotic invented sequence. Philbrick's ghostly officiant at Paul's mock funeral drifts unseen behind Margot, her new spouse, and son Peter, who unaccountably skip Fagin's after-party, where Prendergast's dead arm flops out of a wardrobe to explain Paul's faked death. Cut to Pennyfeather and False Beard as he capers across the fields to freedom, a detail inspired by the novel's Trumpington, who suggests Paul return to college disguised with a beard. Grimes ogles his retreat with its reference to his own earlier disguise, from where he stands in chauffeur's togs beside Margot's car, an implication she's rescued him as well. The miniseries finale dodges the sting of Waugh's title as resolutely. Back at Scone College, Paul handily dismisses his former disgrace in the quad. It's one of the miniseries' few verbatim transcriptions of the book's dialogue, but hands lines the novel gives Paul's new roommate to Pickett Smith's junior dean. While it's a joy spending a few more precious minutes with this legend, the change highlights why both film and miniseries fail. Rather than honor their source, both distort it to sop audience tastes. In Aesop's fable, a father and son try to quiet passerby complaints about the treatment of their mule. This ends in it drowning. Grateful for the compliment, the mule would rather have had what's rightfully his. A cryptic 2017 transition shot reveals where, why, and how both film and miniseries go wrong. After leaving Peter, Paul gazes wistfully at Ferris wheel lights twinkling on a seaside pier, a prominent image in the show's stylized titles. It suggests a crucial scene was lensed then cut, one the 1968 film never meant to include. The novel's rigid architect Silenus posits an amusement park ride as a metaphor for life. Those who revel in its thrills are dynamic, those who observe from afar are static. Loss of this central concept leaves both versions headless. 2017 makes a half-hearted stab, whose Silenus asks Paul merely whether he thinks of himself as one of those types or the other. Paul's last line in the show, assuring the junior dean he's static, is then made ridiculous by the show's last feeble joke. This exchange is only meaningful if between the tale's main characters. Neither film nor miniseries are interested. The miniseries sends Peter to Cambridge, Paul to Oxford, erasing Peter's Trumpington echo, that pivotal conflict which first thrusts Paul on his adventures. In the novel, now a member of the Bollinger Club, stymied by drink and the weight of his class, Peter barges into Paul's college room, who gently humors his former pupil, then sends him on his drunken way, telling him friendship between them is impossible. Peter is dynamic, Paul static. The 2017 remake's one viably original insight is absent even from the novel. Pennyfeather's inconsolable grief after Margot's prison visit, where she admits she's married that pompous MP instead of him. If only both versions had fleshed out the book's send-up of British classism with equally powerful touches. Sadly, both preferred unearned laughs to Waugh's brilliant subtlety. Thank you again so much for watching, and do please hit the like button, leave a comment, and if you found this worthwhile, subscribe for the rest of what will be an epic journey. Any and or all are so important to the YouTube algorithm. Oh, and a little donation to my Patreon account would be a huge help in completing this massive work.